This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to the OI podcast, brought to you by the Otago Institute, the Otago branch of the Royal Society for Arts and Sciences, chatting about arts, sciences and mātauranga Māori. And today we have in the studio, we have Marcia Cassidy. Kia ora, Marcia. Oh, I should say, I'm Dr Barb.
And I'm Trudi. We have with us
Marcia Cassidy. Kia ora, Marcia. Marcia is the Tumauaki for Te Kura Kaupapa Māori here in Dunedin, Ōtepoti. So I guess that's Te Kura Kaupapa Māori or Ōtepoti. Excuse me. I just have to slow down and breathe into this episode. Yeah. Breathe into this episode. And today we are talking about the Te Kura Kaupapa Māori system of schools and a little bit about Matariki, because we're right here in the season for Matariki, and also I believe the Kura is having a night market.
Ooh, so exciting.
Kia ora, Marcia, and welcome to the studio. And if I'll just turn the microphone over to you if you would like to have a little mihi there to the audience and everyone out there.
Ka pai, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou e whakahaere ana I tēnei hōtaka nei, e mihi ana ki a koutou. Koutou katoa e whakahaere ana. Wai hoki ki a koutou ngā kai whakarongo ki tēnei āhuatangi rungi te reo irirangi, nei te mihi o te wā ki a koutou katoa. Ko Marcia tēnei, ko Ōtepoti ki Te Kura Kaupapa Māori Ōtepoti. No te taitoke rau tōku whakapapa Māori, tētahi taha no ngā puhi, tētahi taha no ngai takoto no te rārua anō hoki. Ara ko taku taha Pākehā me ki no te Clan Campbell, no te whare nui o Argyle, no Ireland anō hoki, te rā taku ingoa Cassidy nei, I ahu mai I reira, no reira ko au tēnei, e mihi atu ana ki a koutou katoa.
Kia ora. A little bit of Irish there.
A lot, Cassidy.
Hey, how did you actually come to be the Tumauaki of Te Kura Kaupapa? Or should we wind back and just say what is a Te Kura Kaupapa Māori? What is that?
Oh, okay.
Like just in general, I guess.
In general, a Kura Kaupapa Māori is Māori language schools, Māori immersion schools of te reo Māori language. So they were formed in the early 80s as part of the resistance, really, to the systems that our people had been educated in. And when you look all the way back to some of the Education Acts, where they clearly stated that no instruction in the native schools particularly were to be through the Māori language. Everything was to be through English language, and Māori language would not be accepted or tolerated in what they were then called the native schools. And so when you hear about a lot of I know particularly my grandparents' generation anyway, for being physically abused for speaking the language, which of course was the main language of their time, it comes from that they were not allowed to converse in te reo Māori in the school, even though te reo Māori was the only language in their homes. So people like my grandmother, like our stories and our whānau, her and many others, they had a thing called the dirty line, and when my grandmother was a child, and they were scrubbed down outside to one, get the brown off their skin. And so that was part of what also makes you question, who am I? What? And then you get the strap and anything else for speaking your language. So in my own whānau, that was one of the reasons that my grandparents chose not to teach their children te reo Māori, because they didn't want what happened to them to happen to their children. And then that in turn was passed on to my dad, who chose not to teach us te reo Māori.
But obviously now you have the reo, right?
Obviously we have. So we have movements like Te Kohanga Reo, like Te Kura Kaupapa Māori, like the language resistance that's happened in the country, not just around getting land back, but also growing the language in order to get our identity back, because the language was basically outlawed. So through all those types of resistance, renaissance, rejuvenation comes out of that Te Kura Kaupapa Ngā Kura Kaupapa Māori, as a way to say, actually, we need this.
Yeah.
We need this for ourselves to be able to stand up again. We need this as part of our rongoā, part of our medicine, me ki, to help our people stand up and live again, because there were so many systems and reasons why our people felt like we couldn't stand up. My dad only really started speaking Māori again, feeling okay to speak it once we started speaking, and then our children, and then we started raising our children in Te Reo Māori. And only then, when my dad was probably in his 70s, did he feel safe enough to feel like being able to speak Māori was going to be okay, and we weren't going to be thrown in jail for it, and we weren't going to be abused for it. And some people obviously still are. But anyway, Kura Kaupapa Māori rose out of that as a resistance to the systems that had taken that away from us. Also as part of, like I said, the ability to raise our identity as a nation, to bring our language back, because we know through all language, or through all languages that are endangered, it takes, one generation to get rid of the language, but 3 generations to be able to get it back. So once my grandchildren are speaking te reo to their grandchildren, then the language is cemented back into our whānau. Yep. But at the moment, we're only 2 generations in at the moment.
2.5.
So there's still a lot of work to do, but that's what Kura Kaupapa are there for, to help support those whānau who are bringing back the language into their homes, so that their children have got a place to be able to continue to live every day in Te Reo Māori.
Because I guess it's not just at the school, it's about having it everywhere, so you can have it at the home, and that's where that intergenerational thing comes as well, is having it in the home and in the school, and then in the general day to day. So if you're at a rugby game, or you're playing any kind of sport, that you can feel like you're there, and you've got like a group, like a cohort, basically, that you're all speaking te reo.
Yeah, and it normalises it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're at home. If everybody at home is speaking one language, that's the language for children. That becomes normalised in how they think, how they conceptualise life, thoughts, ideas. And so when you come to a kura kaupapa Māori, because your whānau have chose to put you into kohanga reo because they didn't have language and probably still don't have language.
The kura kohanga reo, kohanga reo is the...
Oh, so they're the early childcare centres that are also full immersion.
Yeah.
So some kura kaupapa have got really clear boundaries, Meki, that if you come to the kura kaupapa, you have to have reo-speaking parents.
Right.
Or reo-speaking people in your home. So they're the pou reo, they're the people that are going to hold fast to making sure that you've got good language mentors in your home. Not all kura kaupapa have that, and I guess it depends where you are in the country, because so many of our whānau don't have the language through all the reasons I just spoke about. So at our kura, we don't have that hard and fast rule that somebody in your home has to be speaking it, but we do have a hard and fast rule that the child has to be able to speak Māori, because we only speak Māori to the kids. And so if they come and they don't know what we're saying, then that is gonna interrupt their education journey.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a hard kind of thing to put out to whānau, and it's also a hard kaupapa for whānau to accept, because they're like, well, it's a Māori school, you're supposed to be here to help us. We're like, yeah, we'd love to, but we can't change the kaupapa. The kaupapa's been set for years to turn it into English, because then otherwise we're just like
what's
the other state
difference?
schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing is there's lots of assistance from the kura to the wider whānau as well. There's lots of resources there if the whānau do want help on that journey, for the wider whānau to actually be...
At our kura, if you are coming to enrol your tamaiti, who's either been in a kohanga reo or is being raised in te reo in the home, then the whānau have to commit to developing their te reo Māori. So we have offered many te reo Māori programs in the past for our whānau at kura. We've got one going at the moment. Yeah, so just over the years, as the different whānau change and develop, then the programs change and develop as well. We're getting quite a cohort at the moment of whānau who have reo in the home.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that also helps to change the way the tamariki speak to each other. Yeah, because your relationships
It just lifts everyone all at the same time with the kids learning from each other as well as from.
Yeah. So the relationships that you build with somebody, you build them in whatever language you build your relationships in is the language that you stay in. So if our tamariki have met each other somewhere else and they've been speaking English, that's the language that they continue to converse in because that's what's normalised. And tamariki are really quick to normalise, whatever's happening at the time. So, it's not just about coming to learn in a school i roto I te reo Māori in the Māori language, and then you just learn all these other things. No, we have to also teach the language. We have to correct the language so that we can then teach content.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the right language skills, you're not going to be able to read and understand what it is that we're doing. So it's a multi-layered approach.
Yeah. No, it's really true, that thing about what language you first meet with, because I noticed that also with my husband, who's German, and obviously his first language is German, but we met when he was doing his PhD here. So he was speaking English, and oh my goodness, 25 years later, I'm still trying to get basic conversational German because we just always default back, even when we're in Germany, we always default back to English because that's normalised. That's what our relation started with, and that's just how it's gone. And obviously with yourself as well, because just for the listeners out there, I met Marcia through the Wananga because I took a level NCA Level 1, Level 2 course in Te Reo Māori, and this is my kaiako here. And so even there, we're still, I think the things I want to say to Marcia has just that Marcia wants to say to me has just outpaced my reo learning.
And tamariki learn really quickly who to speak what language to.
Yeah.
So we do have some grandparents who don't really want their tamariki to come to Kura Kaupapa because the grandparents or the parent in that vein as well doesn't speak the language and how they're going to help and support their tamaiti. But the tamariki learn really quickly. I speak Māori to that person because I know that person speaks Māori to me. I speak English to that person because that person speaks English to me. And it's still really important, no matter what language you're learning, that you've got language mentors in those languages. But a tamaiti only needs one person to speak a language to them fluently. Don't switch into another language.
Yeah.
And they will gain that language in the relationship they've got with that person.
And that, I guess that also is like really, I don't know, that sometimes you hear this weird criticism that, oh my gosh, if they go to a Te Kura Kaupapa Māori, how will their English develop? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. You can see my eyes rolling back. It's English everywhere.
It's English everywhere. Our tamariki teach themselves how to read English, for example.
Yeah.
Because it's everywhere. Because now there's so much access to phones and iPads and technology
just TV
that they read. Yeah, they're reading it all the time, and they always. Well, our first lot of tamariki that went through since I've been at Kura, they learnt by reading the road signs. They knew how to say Kaikorai, and they'd heard of Kaikorai Valley. So they're like, oh, is that Kaikorai Valley Road? And then they start to just read and
make those connections.
Yeah. But you can, there's a Māori ear as well, so they will also hear things that are quite Māori, even though it's said in English. Quick example, when my son was little, hopefully he's not listening, we were at McDonald's, and we went through, and they ask what you want, and then you give them your order, and then we were sitting waiting, and he said to me, "Can Pākehā speak Māori?" And I was like, yeah, some can. And I was like, what on earth made you think of that? And he goes, because she just spoke Māori. I said, no, she didn't. And he goes, yeah, she did. And I said, what does she say? And he goes, I don't know, but she spoke Māori. And then she gave us the order, and she said, thank you for your order. So, and I thought, when we sit at the place where you order, and she says, can I take your order? He heard kia ora.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the Māori ear is tuned as well to, your language that you are raised in is attuned to that first.
Yeah, and I think that's through, I think there's a lot of that in Kiwi English as well that we don't really realise. Like when we go truckie and bike, I don't know, there's a whole heap of examples like that, bikie, truckie, like all the things that we just put a vowel on the end of it. And I think that's the Maoriification of English a little bit. I don't know, because there's a really cool, well, it must go backwards and forwards, because especially in the early days when there was more people speaking Te Reo Māori than there were English, like right back in the very beginning of the interaction. But I think there's some really cool research from Jennifer Hay about Tui and how Tui, the dialect that Tui has picked up some English tones. It's a crazy study. I'll get the reference for it and show you. But yeah, no, it's really cool. Anyway, it must be that whenever you have, because Kiwi English obviously is different from English, and it's different from Australian English, and I think there must be some influence back.
Yeah,
to the
not
English.
Not sure.
Yeah, she's not.
No.
She's not buying that at all. Hey, we're right in the middle of Matariki now, and I was wondering if you'd like to just have some kōrero there around Matariki and what Matariki means for you and for the kura, and because it is kind of one of the big events on the Te Ao Māori calendar, and I was thinking just in terms maybe of the kura and how that reflects how your teaching might hang around that in this period, because it's not just obviously we have a holiday now, which is fantastic. I'm so happy that we have the Matariki public holiday now, and I think that's great, and I hope that we as a country manage to keep that public holiday going forward. But of course in Te Ao Māori, Matariki is not just a day, it's not just a public holiday. And we were talking just before we went on air here about the nature of Matariki, whether it's a celebration or how it actually works. Because of course it's marking the new year, but also the leaving of the old year, I guess. I just thought I would just pass that over to you, Marcia.
Ka pai, well, I can share a little bit, although, I'm far from what I refer to as any kind of, knowledgeable person around Matariki.
Well, maybe even
I
just...
think it's really helpful just to get... just a perspective from somebody.
Yeah, and perspectives from different people, I think, as well. Because it's like everything. Like Christmas means different things to different people. And I think so must Matariki, even across the aisles, but even interpersonal as well. So.
Yeah, well, Matariki is a significant time marker in the Māori world, but actually across the Pacific. Like all of our Pacific tuakana brothers and sisters recognise Matariki in some way. Makali'i, like every single Polynesian culture has the term Matariki and commemorate it. So for me, Matariki is a time of acknowledging that our time frames are different. That it's another recognition of that we do have a different perspective on the world. That we have a different perspective of how time works. Matariki, and again, it depends where you come from in the Māori world as to whether you go with Matariki starting on the new moon of Whiro within that month, or whether you are from far north, a little bit further down the North Island, where the iwi recognise that Matariki starts at the rising of in the Tangaroa moon phases. So Matariki's always connected to the marama and the whenua and the taiao. So the environment is all about Matariki.
Yeah. And it's always connected to the moon there, right? So it's all about...
marama.
The marama. It's all about the moon, which is a big difference from the European English calendar, which is largely driven by the sun. So it's a solar calendar.
Yeah.
In that we have 365 days, because that's how long the Earth takes to go around the sun, whereas Matariki is driven, the whole of the Māori calendar is driven by the moon. So the Maramataka.
So Matariki, for me personally, is a time to recognise the year that's gone, and mostly those that have gone in that year, our loved ones who have gone over to the other side, Meki. And within the Matariki is one constellation within a mass of constellations, and that whole, there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can quickly think of that make up what we call Te Waka o Rangi, down here Te Waka o Raki, and Matariki is at the tauihu, at the front of that waka, and what people refer to as the pot or Orion's belt.
Yeah.
That's at the taurapa, that's at the other end of this waka.
So you've got one massive big waka in the sky.
Yeah,
there.
so if you know where Orion's belt is, if you know where what we call tautoru is, and then you follow that to the left, Matariki will be at that end of the waka. And on the waka is the kaihautu, who's Taramainaku, and Taramainaku is, the captain of the waka. And he has this massive net, and when you work out how to read all of that, you can see the stars that create the net. And so the belief is that when Matariki rises in that particular moon is when Taramainaku, ko haungia tana kupenga, he casts his net out and takes up all of those that have passed in the last year. And that's why we have a lot of the rituals that we have around Matariki. And then kua whetu rangitia. So when you're on marae and you hear people doing whai kōrero, they'll always acknowledge those that have passed, and they'll say kua whetu rangitia ara. They've gone to become stars. And so everything is always connected to something else that you might know or have learnt about or have heard about in the Māori world. So once you get further and further in, which is what the language will do for you, takes you further into the world.
Yeah.
And the mātauranga Māori and the knowledge that sits behind all of that, then you see all of those connections. So Matariki is a time for whānau, to remember and to also prepare for the time ahead, because if you think about that Matariki is the new year, it actually is talking about that the harvesting has finished. So you've prepared your ground, you've prepared your ground, you've sowed your kai, you've then harvested it. And at the end of harvest time, Matariki will rise, and that's why they say it's a sign for a new year, because then you start again preparing your land, preparing your kai to get everybody through the winter months, and then you harvest it all, and then once it's all harvested, you'll know Matariki has come upon us again.
Yeah. And then you kind of got that nice period in the winter where hopefully you've got all the food and provisions that you need, and then you sort of have that calm kind of reflective period. And of course the days are shorter.
Yeah, and if we were following the maramataka, we would all be on holiday now.
Yeah. I would love it, eh?
Yeah, it's a time for rest. It's dark, it's cold.
It's dark, it's cold. You're at home, you want to snuggle in, you want to eat nice food, you want to have family around and
it's
friends
time for
around.
wānanga. This is the time where you'd wānanga, and because all the mahi's done.
Yeah, so you sort of, this is when it feels, I think, in your body like you want to be sitting,
hibernating.
Semi-hibernating, sitting around, eating, enjoying nice food, telling tales, talking with your folks, your friends, that whole kind of swapping stories.
And in
type
summertime,
thing.
we have a big massive break, and everybody goes to the beach and has a big holiday in the sun. But actually, that's probably the most productive time that we should be all out working.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because that's based on the early settlers wanted their kids out of school to go bring in the harvest. So it's just as we move away from a kind of agricultural based flows to our lives and rhythms to our lives, then those disconnects happen.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and we were just flat out all the summer because we never had holidays. We never went away. I mean, we had holidays from school, but we never went away. We were just haymaking and marking lambs and
So the further we've got away from the environmental attachment of like why humans are so important to the land.
it's that.
The further we've got away from our land being looked after.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's funny. And it's kind of like not fitting our social structure to the environment and the way that we have right here in a local way. It's kind of like some sort of artificial idea and then trying to force our lives. Because I always find Christmas, New Year really hectic and unrelaxing and un-holiday-like at all. I think I don't like having the holidays then. I don't know. That might just be me. But.
Well, I suppose that's the challenge, isn't it? Now we're so disconnected from the land, from the seasons in some ways. How do you redress that unless you'll go back to being farmers or something. Yeah, or we should be just a bit more, because, you know, I
flexible working schedules as well.
Yeah, I call it agricultural time. I'd love to work lots of hours when the sun's up, and then as the sun gets shorter, the days get shorter. I don't want to be working at all, thank you. Yeah.
There are a few other kura kaupapa Māori around the country who have decided to realign with maramataka Māori. So they do this. They work. They still have school during the summer. They have a couple of days off, but otherwise this is their break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To align with our whakapono, with what our actual beliefs and true values are about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard for some because our families can't always align to that because of work and, you know.
But of course that's why that we have Christmas in the middle of winter in the first place, because that's when in England in Britain they had Christmas because it was the middle of winter and they
need something to celebrate to keep it going. It's interesting because a lot of those traditions built on much earlier pre-Christian ones. So it's kind of like you take something that's already the population's sort of thing
because it was the sensible time to do things, right?
Yeah.
And then and I guess that's where it comes from. It was a sensible time to do things, and then as Christianity was trying to take over Europe and move out there, it just said, okay, we're going to have a celebration at the same time. We're just going to kind of overlay our celebration on top of the pagan celebration that's already there, the Celtic or whatever celebrations that are already there. And then, of course, they've just kind of moved around the world as the British spread around the world. But, yeah, I'm quite up for just knocking Easter on its head, knocking Christmas on its head. Let's just...
I don't know, I find Easter's really interesting because it's almost a lunar holiday because it's the first full moon after the first Sunday after the autumn equinox. So it's kind of it's got a different that's why it's so it moves each year. It's not always at the same time. And I thought that would be quite interesting to see why that is.
Well, that's just. Well, let's not go into that, but because of course Easter's different depending on what branch of Christianity you are.
Yeah, but why do we hook it into a lunar thing? Or why is it hooked into a lunar thing as opposed to something else, whereas Christmas is always on that same day? Yeah. Depending on
what religion you are.
But that day may change.
Crazy. Anyway, let's go back to Kura Kaupapa. Honestly, that whole English thing, Jesus. I mean, honestly, it's a mess, right? Like, and it's interesting because people say, oh, how are we going to deal with this new Matariki holiday? Because it shifts. But of course, we've dealt for years and years with Easter shifting, and no one thinks anything of it. So it's perfectly possible to deal with Matariki shifting.
It really is just another excuse to not raise consciousness to things Māori.
It's kind of strange, eh? And of course, the other thing is like normally you would have a longer holiday for Matariki. Like that would make sense to have a decent amount of time so you can actually travel to whānau if they're in a different place in New Zealand, whatever. So,
or perhaps we shorten Easter and make Matariki longer.
It's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because of course Christmas is basically 2 days, and then New Year and the second is another 2 days a week later. So we actually have a cluster of holidays around the middle of summer. We could swap the 2nd of January to Matariki, right, and have a 4-day holiday, have a 5-day holiday around the year, take some of Easter there, I don't know, just have more holidays. But
sudden visions, all these people take their boats to Cromwell for the summer holiday.
But I mean, there is quite a lot of flexibility around that, and I think that Marcia has a very valid point there, is that there's a lot of just like knee-jerk, no, we can't do that. But actually, it's more about thinking, how can we do this? How could we do this? And I think that's something that we really don't particularly. We're starting from the wrong starting point, the wrong viewpoint. Yeah, like how can we do this that makes the most sense? How could we? And we're on the track. We just need to keep the momentum going. It's a slower process than a lot of us would like. How does the kura here in Ōtepoti, how do they mark Matariki with the?
Well, this year in particular, we're having our first night market on the 5th of July. Just making a wee plug there. 5th of July out at 378 Main South Road, Fairfield.
Yeah. So that's just past the Abbotsford.
Just past the Sunnyvale Sports Centre.
Yeah.
So when was that again?
Oh, that was the 5th of July.
And is it all day or what's...
No, it's from, I might get the time wrong, 5 till 7.
5 till 7?
But if you turn up at 4:30, there might be something open.
Oh.
We'll be setting up all day anyway. But anyway, 5 till 7. Again, this is our first time we've run a night market. So we do have a Facebook page out there. It's called Hauhake Te Kura Matariki. And that comes from a whakatauki, which basically means when the harvest ends, Matariki sets.
Nice.
So it's another way of saying, this is the time that we're in. And the 5th or the 6th of July is around about the time where Matariki will head back down beyond the horizon and stay low for a while.
Yeah. And I just checked, that is a Friday.
That is a Friday. It's the last day of the school term.
It's the last day of the school term. Oh, so
yes.
That's cunning as well.
Yes, so come see us. There's plenty of kai, all sorts of kai, diverse range.
So is that going to be food trailers, food trucks?
It's actually
Will there be hangi?
Our senior classrooms are making a lot of the food. There is going to be hangi as one of the stalls. I do understand that some of those tickets are going to be pre-sold, so get on that Facebook page, Hauhake Te Kura Matariki.
And we'll put that link on with the episode information for this. Yep.
But there's going to be things like, what else are they having? Taniwha burgers, loaded power fries.
What is a taniwha
For burger, yeah.
I think it's just a big, massive. I'm not quite sure. I'm not on that part, but
it's really spicy or something.
I think it's so big. The seniors are making them.
I'm excited to learn that. Is it going to be fry bread?
Yes, there is going to be fry bread. There's going to be our usual kai that we have. What else are they having? Loaded power fries, seafood chowder, vegetarian nachos, sweet brownies, brownies for your hips, and pani kawa for your lips. One of our other classes, the year 7s and 8s, they are currently madly sewing up cushions, wheat bags.
Nice.
They've made a te reo Māori rauemi out of the Jenga blocks.
A rauemi?
Yeah, a resource, Māori language resource. So,
nice.
So a lot of our kiwaha that we use, which are our kind of everyday sort of colloquial sayings that we use, and then the English translation on the back of those. So that's a really a cool little resource that they've developed. Our next class down, the year 4s and 5s, they are creating a photo shoot where you can come in with your whānau and pay your money, and then you can get dressed up in piu-piu and pare and korowai and all of those types of kākahu clothing from our old days, and have a photo shoot of your family.
Oh, that sounds cool as well.
And then you get that. I don't know the cost, right now, but then I know that you get sent that link, so you can download as many photos as you like.
Oh, cool.
From there.
Yeah.
And our little babies, our 5 and 6 year olds and 7-year-olds, they've been propagating pot plants.
Oh, nice.
And they're making bead bangles, all sort. They're doing like lots of little things for little tamariki.
And of course, it's open to everyone, isn't it?
It's open to everyone. Yep. There will be entertainment. We've so far got 4 different kapahaka groups. We're going to have a Matariki Idol.
What's a Matariki Idol?
Like New Zealand Idol, and those
American
kind of
Idol.
things.
Yeah.
But it's Matariki Idol.
Oh, no, that's cool. So
Yes.
it's kind of like there'll be a microphone there and a panel of judges with a big buzzer.
Well, not quite.
They're not going to go.
Yeah. The judges are the audience.
All right.
nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sometimes that's
So you
great.
got to get your
Sometimes
fun out
that's
there.
right. That's right. There's a big hoko area, so they'll be selling top of the line secondhand clothing, secondhand goods.
Oh, nice.
So it's not just clothing. There is a number of different household items. I understand there's a brand new air fryer, a crock pot, just some pretty amazing stuff
wow, that
going
sounds
in
pretty
there.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the classrooms are fundraising for themselves. So if you purchase items from the classroom stalls, that money goes to the classroom.
Right.
The food that we're selling inside the kura, inside the school, that money goes to the school as an overall fundraiser.
Yeah.
And then all the other stalls, well, people are there to sell their own goods.
Right.
And they can choose whether or not they gift a percentage back of their profits to the kura.
To the kura,
Yeah.
And if someone wants to join in, is it still open for new stalls, or have you got your
Yes, it is.
stalls?
I've just actually put the stall application up on the
website
page.
Yep.
So once we get that link in, people will be able to go to that page and fill out an application form. The stall applications do close on the 2nd of July. But
cool.
you can always send me a message on Facebook, Marcia Cassidy.
Yeah, so and then I guess that's stalls that kind of fit in with the kaupapa.
Yeah, not everybody's going to get a stall, but get a place, but that's really because of our space.
Yeah.
Right.
So it will be outside.
Yeah.
Dress warmly.
Yeah.
Hat, scarf, gloves, jacket, everything you need.
Yeah.
We do also have the Star Dome from Tuhura.
Oh, nice.
Coming, so that'll be in the wharenui.
Oh, nice. And is there going to be a telescope there?
I'm not sure.
Maybe we should talk to the Observatory Society. That'd be cool to have a telescope there, eh?
Yeah.
If the weather's good,
yeah,
we can put it out. It's always, I'm always, because I'm such a moth person, I'm always in the night, but I'm always so, like in the winter, it's so cold, there's hardly any moths around. So otherwise, yeah.
I've just had a thought. So the 5th is the last day of the school term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you think, why can't we adjust the school holidays so it's a bit more aligned with Matariki?
Oh, that would be great, wouldn't it? Just align the school holidays with Matariki.
Yeah, well, that would be good.
That'd be good. That'd be a really
you
cool.
heard it here first.
Yeah.
Otago Access Radio, if there's any politicians out there wanting to make a real change for New Zealand.
Yeah, no, it would be good. But, I mean, we are always going to have Matariki now, aren't we? The holiday.
Well, it's going to happen whether it's a holiday or not.
I think so too.
It's going to happen.
Because there's a massive thing happening in Ōtepoti this year, eh? They've got the light drones. And
the national...
big festival and everything.
The national celebration. So last year, I don't know if anybody watched it, and if you didn't, make sure you watch this year. It's just amazing. So last year, which was was that the first? Well, it was the first time we had the main...
I think it was the first time we had the main holiday.
National...
maybe it was the second time.
National
goodness,
opening of
remember
Matariki.
now. Yeah.
It was up in Rotorua. So this year it's in Queenstown. So last year Te Arawa ran it. This year Kaitahu's running it. So it's pretty much all the karakia and rituals that used to be around the rising of Matariki are being done on a
national scale.
Major national scale, televised.
When is that?
That will be on the morning of the 28th, which is the national holiday.
Wow.
But of course, Matariki goes across a number of days, at least around 10 days. And but because that date's the one that was chosen this year.
That wasn't just chosen just haphazardly, was it?
Oh, no, there was a whole group of people from all across the country, different iwi.
Yeah.
So, of course, different iwi have different... beliefs around when Matariki is.
Yeah.
And also not everybody celebrates Matariki. Some people celebrate Puaka or Puanga, which is part of the Orion's constellation, Orion's belt. So amongst that, all of that team, they all decided on these different days and why.
And that's partly why as well that it changes.
Yeah, well, it changes because of the Tangaroa moons.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to just learn more and get that solidified in our learning about not just when it is, but the kōrero around the differences and the diversity within New Zealand and of course that whole of the Pacific there, which is quite interesting because it's obviously a very ancient belief system because it goes all the way back and throughout Polynesia.
And it's in every Polynesian language group, so we know it's old.
Yeah, it's like a root, like when you're following back languages and dialects, you do the same thing. So the earliest branching point is way back as Polynesian people were coming down into the start of Polynesia, I guess, and then spreading across the whole of Polynesia.
Yeah.
And then ultimately to New Zealand, Aotearoa. Quite cool.
Yeah, so during that ceremony, that will be televised on the 28th of July, Friday morning, you'll see people, so there'll be karanga, there'll be karakia, and each one of those is to each one of the different whetū, each one of the 9 different stars, and how those stars, one, align with the bounty of with the environment. 2, the weather patterns. 3, those that have passed. And 4, the future.
Yeah.
So there's a number of, even though there's 9 stars, those are the 4 kind of main categories that they
fall into. And of course, each star sort of has a personification and a representation or an affinity with a different sort of aspect of nature.
Life.
Life, nature, and the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting kōrero. And I like the difference in that it's not like hyped up commercial celebration type with a whole lot of you have to go and buy this and buy that and buy that. It's not really a time for that. It's sort of much more calm, reflective holiday.
Yeah, well, again, it relates back to the fact that it's winter.
Yeah.
The mahi is finished. It's time to rest. It's time to wānanga. And so
just
to go
calm
out
down,
and,
take a deep breath.
Yeah, so, there's not necessarily... I mean, some people still do have things like fireworks to recognise it.
Yeah.
But if you look at why we're celebrating it, it's a way of... Or not celebrating it.
What is... I was just going to say...
Recognise it.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I always feel my tongue tripping over what... like the words around how to describe it, because it's not really a celebration, right? It's we're recognising it or what's the other thing?
Well,
there's acknowledging
it. Well, there is the saying. One of the national sayings that came out of that group was manawatia a Matariki. So kind of celebrate Matariki, which we do want people to do as a way of bringing it back to normalcy. We want people to recognise it and see that we should be celebrating the significant time factor.
Yeah.
In New Zealand.
So instead of as you would say, Happy Easter.
Yeah.
You would say manawatia
a Matariki.
A Matariki. Manawatia a Matariki. And I'm pronouncing that right?
Yes, you are.
Oh, fantastic.
Atahua.
Manawatia a Matariki. Yeah. And I guess that's still in that sort of is there different phases within Matariki? So is there more of a that's how you were saying before, it's kind of a period of time. Is it that over that period it sort of goes from a more reflective time to a more celebration time or vice versa? Or is that too difficult to say because it just depends too much on where you are in New Zealand or individuals?
Well, I guess I don't, we celebrate things because we do things like we celebrate the New Year at the end of December, beginning of January, or we celebrate Christmas? We recognise it with the way that we have our rituals. We have family all gets together and we eat together. Some people share gifts and presents with each other. I don't know, I guess it's about, we definitely celebrate New Year.
Yeah.
People go crazy.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's true, because Christmas really is a recognising, right? So, we say celebrate Christmas, but really you're right, it's a recognising. And for a lot of people, it's more about the gathering of family and sharing a meal together and the tradition around what you're eating and when that meal is and how you're doing it, as opposed to the gifting part of it. And then, of course, there's a whole other section of society that it's actually more around the religious process of whatever people are doing for whatever their religion is. Yeah. But there's not so much of it's not a balloons and fireworks type event, is it? And I guess that's...
There can be a few fireworks after too many glasses of wine. Christmas dinner when people bring up stuff that should remain silent.
Yeah. Yes, those metaphorical fireworks. Oh, my goodness, Oh, crazy, So I guess this is actually quite a busy time still at the kura, though, because all the classes are actually... all the tamariki and all the kaiako are actually kind of working towards... I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I have not yet to see a non-busy time at the kura. Yeah.
But you can feel that it's that it should be a time of rest.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's more that you're doing kind of craft type.
Yeah. Everyone's
type
busy.
Activities.
So there's that though, but there's also everything else that has to go on, i.e. NCA assessments. That also have to go on at the same time. We've just finished Manu Kōrero, which took up at least 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks of our time, and so nothing really happened towards the night market till after that.
Yeah.
What else has happened? On the same week as the night market, we'll be having our PP kōrero, so the manu kōreros for our secondary school students and the PP kōreros for our primary school students, where they too will stand and deliver a whai kōrero, a speech.
Yeah, so
please dispel my ignorance. So the kura goes right through to high school now or something?
Our kura does. And so when you asked me earlier, how did I become the Tumauaki? Well, should I roll into that?
Yeah, you've got 10 minutes there. Roll into it.
Okay. So when my son started at the kura, the kura only went up to year 8.
Right.
We didn't have a high school section at that time. So when him and the group of students that I was just a mum, just whānau member, and then when they got to about year 6, year 7, the parents started talking about what are we going to do, where are we going to send our kids to high school. Everybody knew they didn't want to send them into the high schools in town because 1, we'd all been at those high schools and it hadn't been great. 2, another group of rangatahi that had left the kura years before we got there, they too had gone to the high schools in town, and some it had been all right for some and again not for others. So we were like, why would we repeat that? So the only other way that we could keep them at kura was to establish a high school. So
and there are lots of other kura that run all the way through to year 13 across the country.
So they're called whare kura. So whare kura, people think whare kura is just the high school, but it's because you've got a high school that it gets called the whare kura.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right.
so that's year 0 to year, they actually call it up to year 14, 15.
Right.
So we established a vision with all of the whānau whose tamariki were going to be moving through to the high school, and we worked on it for good 2 years, 2016, 2017. Of course, we weren't a high school, so the ministry couldn't give us money to establish one. We only had a few tamariki that were going to be moving through, so we applied for funding from an independent company to establish this pilot high school classroom. We got the funding for that, and then we're like, right, who's going to teach these kids? And they said, you can teach the kids. I said, I'm not a teacher of children. I'm a teacher of adults. So I'd worked for Te Wānanga Aotearoa for a number of years and worked at the Ministry of Education for a number of years before that. So I've always been involved in facilitation or teaching, etc., etc. So
and a lot of work with teenagers in a mentoring capacity as well.
Worked a lot with rangatahi. So anyway, had a talk. Yeah, long story short, I ended up going up to Te Wānanga Raukawa to do a postgrad teaching certificate for a year. Did that, and it was an immersion course, so that helped to strengthen my reo as well to be able to come back and teach. Came back from there. We hadn't had a Tumauaki to start that year. So we did have one, but she didn't have te reo Māori, and she was there for term 1, and then somebody came down from Kawerau, and she was with us for term 2, 3 and 4, but when I graduated from Raukawa, she said that she was moving back to Kawerau because that just always happens. People move down here and then they move back and then move back. Yeah. So I said, oh my gosh, what? Who's going to be the Tumauaki? She goes, well, you could be the Tumauaki because you already have the trust of the whānau because I was a whānau member. Yeah. I said, well, yeah, because I'm not the Tumauaki. Once I'm the Tumauaki, I think that's a different story. True. Anyway, so long story short again, I ended up in the position as first-time Tumauaki. I was also a first-year teacher. So I ended up teaching those tamariki, the 5 that were moving through to the high school. And then I think it was 2020, might have been 2020. Yeah, in 2020 we applied and we applied in 2019. And then in 2020, during COVID, we got approved the status to become a high school.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So we have been officially a whare kura or a high school since 2020. Yeah. And our students, even though we're a high school, they are still enrolled for their NCA and those types of things under Te Wharekura Arowhenua in Invercargill, who is our tuakana kura kaupapa. Right. Because while we've got high school status, we don't yet have NCA consent to assess, which is another big kaupapa that we're working on, so that then we will be able to do that ourselves. Currently, we enrol them under there. We do all the teaching and then we send all our
They do the assessment.
send all our work down there.
And I mean, it's more complicated with all the logistics around it, but it is quite a nice way to always have that kind of backup
It's
older
fantastic.
sister there, and just like they've been doing it for a longer time, and they've got the systems in place, and just have that kind of, how do you do this? What's this? What's the, you know, just to get used to the system, because it is a crazy system that you see.
Crazy. We're so lucky. We're so lucky, and we're so grateful that we have Te Wharekura Arowhenua there as our tuakana. There are 5 kura kaupapa across the South Island, and so all 5 of us work really closely together. All the Tumauaki, we meet quite regularly around how to make sure that all our tamariki, because so there's one in Nelson, there's one in Dunedin, there's one in Invercargill, and there's 2 in Christchurch. So often our tamariki feel like they're the only tamariki that are living in this world where they have to kōrero Māori all the time. So being able to have opportunities to come together and bring them together with other tamariki, learning in the same way, learning from the same belief system. We don't use the New Zealand curriculum, so we use our own marautanga called Te Aho Matua.
Which, of course, is developed, just to interrupt there, is developed across, because was there 70, 72, 73 kura across New Zealand that have the same curriculum that you're using from the kura kaupapa?
If you're a kura kaupapa Māori aho matua, then everybody uses Te Aho Matua as their philosophical foundation and basis for having a kura, but also it's the maro, it's the curriculum as well. So we've got a really good support system here in Te Waka with all the kura kaupapa, but also there's te runanga nui o ngā kura kaupapa o Aotearoa who help to facilitate across all of the kura kaupapa.
So that's the whole national body. And of course they have national meetings as well, don't they, where everyone gets together in a different place every year. So just kind of as a, I don't know, I guess that's quite a parallel to the mainstream schools. But the mainstream schools, do we have much connect with them in Dunedin? Because the mana kōrero, that's not just for kura kaupapa Māori, right?
Yeah, no, that's for any high school.
Yeah, and that's open. So and I think myself, I didn't quite realise how big manu kōrero was, and I think that's a thing that a lot of people, possibly because my education, I grew up in Central Otago, it's kind of the whitest place in New Zealand. And I don't know how long manu kōrero has been going, but I think it's a long time.
A long time. It was going when I was at school.
Yeah, so it definitely predates my schooling days. Not that I'm younger or older than Marcia. I think we're exactly the same age. But
that's interesting. But it's not well known.
It just...
So if you can ever get next year, manu kōrero will be here in Dunedin.
The nationals,
No, the regionals. We've just not long had nationals
here in Dunedin.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
they do it in 2 stages, don't they? So or even 3 stages, because it's sort of a within school competition.
Because you've got to decide who's going to be your representatives at the regionals.
Right. And
then not every school does that though, because they just pick who wants to be the speaker. I do. Well, you're in.
Right.
But at our kura, because everybody has to deliver a kōrero, then we're like, well, we might as well
do it as a competition.
Might as well have a competition, get it judged, and then you're the one that goes through. But this year was the first year that we've put speakers through to every category. So you have senior Māori, senior English, junior Māori, junior English. So we put one a tauira in each one of those categories, which was the first time we've done that.
And you've got prepared speeches and impromptu speeches as well.
The seniors have prepared and impromptu, and the juniors just have prepared speeches.
And that's both in the te reo and in English as well, right? So they could potentially be, a senior could potentially be delivering 4 speeches. Is that correct?
A senior could, yeah.
Crazy, eh? And how long are these speeches?
The senior Māori is 10 to 12 minutes. It's a long time to remember
an entire
and deliver.
Yeah.
And win, be able to present your all in order to, and to have, because the judges are there for different reasons. Someone's there judging, how correct your language structures are.
Yeah.
It's full on.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more than just remembering. It's about delivering.
And obviously you're not standing there reading from a piece of paper either, right? It's all done up. So I'm going to stop us here because we're running out of time for this one, but we will be coming back to manu kōrero because Tumai Campbell, who was one of this year's winners, I think he is going to the Nationals, standing for Te Kura Kaupapa Te Kura Kaupapa Māori or Ōtepoti. So he was standing for the seniors.
Well, he won as a Kura Kaupapa Māori Ōtepoti student, but he's representing the rohe, the region.
Okay.
Yeah. So all the speakers that won at the regionals, they are representing the rohe, not just their school.
Excellent. So we'll get him back in sometime in the next couple of weeks, and he's agreed to actually give his kōrero here in the studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And and then we can talk some more about the mana kōrero and the whole structure. And hey, Marcia, thank you so much for coming along. I'm just going to reiterate that night market. So that is July 5th, Friday.
5th, Friday night.
And it will be from 4:30 till 7.
Yep.
And if anyone has a stall that they would like, that's going to be up on the website, the Facebook page, and we'll put all those links in the episode description. And manawatia a Matariki.
Manawatia a Matariki.
Yeah, kia ora. You've been listening to the OI podcast, the shout out for the arts, sciences and mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on ORFM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by ORFM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.